Hello, everybody. Today I have a message that is very important for the today, like our natural world, as well as our spirit world, because there are a lot of people who are struggling with people pleasing. It's not biblical for God to bless people pleasers. God doesn't get pleased by you trying to please everyone else. And in fact, God usually has people go against what is the usual or what most people would do. Just because you may receive an award or you may be looked at as righteous in today's world, it does not mean that God is pleased by that thing, because you can turn a blind eye, you can turn away and ignore something for the sake of keeping the peace to please everyone else. This is just an example. And that thing needed to be spoke on, and God put it in your spirit for you to speak on that thing. And by you turning away and deciding, I'm not going to say anything because no one else is saying anything, so I'm just going to be another bystander, you are now just as guilty as them by default. And I never understood this until I read the Bible. When Moses was born, it was an order out for them to kill all of the Hebrew boys that were born at that time. And in Exodus 1:15 through 17, it says, the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. They had so much courage that they decided to stand up and do what was right because they knew that God was watching. And look at this. Exodus 1:20 through 21 says, so God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Because they were obedient, because they feared God more than their own losing their own lives, because they feared God more than going to prison, because they feared God more than being looked at a certain way, because they feared God more than the natural circumstances that could have been thrown at them, they ended up being rewarded with their own families because they stood up for what it was that was right. Now, another example would be Genesis 39:7 through 10, and it says, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. I don't know if I told you guys already, but that's Genesis 39:7 through 10. If you read the book of Genesis, you know how God exalts Joseph. After this situation happened with Joseph, this man's wife decided, I'm going to lie on you and say that you came on to me because I don't like that you rejected me. But him deciding to do what's right, he shut his mouth. He ended up in prison. He didn't plead and try to convince everybody that, oh no, I'm innocent. He sat in jail for years. And one day, he became second-hand man to Pharaoh because of the righteous thing that he did before God, although people lied on him. He could have been just willing to do any and every old thing. He didn't decide, I'm just going to go ahead and sleep with this woman and be with this woman because she's begging me. He decided, I'm going to do what's right before God because God has blessed me. So I am not going to lay down with you. And so God blessed him. Now, Exodus 5:20 says, the Israelite overseers realized they were in trouble when they were told, you are not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day. When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said, may the Lord look on you and judge you. And you have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. This is a perfect example of how people pleasing does not please God. Okay? So, the Israelites got mad at Moses because their work got harder because of Moses putting pressure on the problem. But I encourage you guys to read your Bible. But in this story, God uses Moses to lead these same people who have said, may the Lord look on you and judge you, to be their leader and to lead them into freedom. He used the same man that they got mad at to help lead them into a promised land that they have never seen. They were extremely angry. Extremely angry. This next one is another example of that. Exodus 6:6-9 says, therefore say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God who brought you from under the yoke of the Egyptians. And I will bring you to the land I swore with uplifted hands to bring to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am the Lord. Moses reported this to the Israelites, but they did not listen to him because of their discouragement and harsh labor. They were angry. They were exhausted. They didn't want to hear nothing this man said because he put pressure on that problem. And yet and still, although they didn't want to hear nothing he had to say, they needed him for their freedom. God was pleased with Moses for being obedient, despite the fact that these people complained every single step of the way. God blessed Moses to be able to lead them to this place. He spoke to Moses directly. So, to sum up this video, and to keep it very short, I have 3 verses. Is it 3? Yes, I have 3 verses that's going to make it all just come together like a puzzle piece. Galatians 1:10 says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. The two contradict each other. You cannot please man and please God, because God knows all, and people switch up and decide what they want to do every single day. I can attest that. One day I love you, the next day I don't know how I feel about you. And it's only because I'm human. Matthew 6:1 says, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Just because you get a reward in the physical world, people look at you this way. God's seen it all. God judges it all. And just because you have everybody else's approval, it does not mean that God has approved you to do that thing. People pleasing ain't always the right thing. It always ain't the right way to go. And the last one is the most important one. Proverbs 29:25, which says, fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Hey, y'all, stay prayed up, read y'all Bible, study the word. I encourage you, and stop people pleasing. Bye, y'all. Love y'all.